In this video, we talk about whether West Coast Swing should change its name. What's up, gang? Brian B, West Coast Swing Online. We are just talking a few random things about West Coast Swing, and one of the questions that's come up over the last year or two is whether or not West Coast Swing should change its name. And I do not purport to have an answer for you, so I'm just going to offer up a few things that I've learned in my pursuit of answering that question. The biggest resource that I've found was a guy by the name of Forrest Outman. He is a West Coast Swing, or rather a ballroom dance history expert. And so I have had two conversations with him. You can look them up here on YouTube. We're going to link them in the description below and in the corner. One is the history of West Coast Swing, where we did an hour chat, and he gave us a little bit of how West Coast Swing evolved out of Lindy Hop. Quick tutorial, Dean Collins lived on the East Coast. He moved to the West Coast to be in movies, and he brought his brand of Lindy Hop and dancing to the West Coast. And at that time, there was no YouTube. So if you can imagine being 3,000 miles away, the dance developed differently on the West Coast, eventually becoming what we now know as West Coast Swing. So theoretically, the dance did undergo a name change from Lindy Hop into, which still continues to this day, into West Coast Swing, which is a different branch of swing dancing. So for the people that say it should not change its name, I offer you that dances, as they do diverge, they will undergo name changes when they become significantly different. So this is the question I posted to Forrest in my follow-up chat with him. Again, we'll link that. You can YouTube that. It's the past, present, and future of West Coast Swing. We did that with Forrest Outman. And so I posed him that question. I said, at what point does a dance earn its new name, right? At what point does West Coast Swing evolve from Lindy Hop, and at which point does something else evolve from West Coast Swing as it is today? And he made he said something very interesting to me. He said, when the new school and the old school can no longer communicate and dance together. And so if you think of that in a language scenario, as a language diverges, if there's an accent in the language, you can still understand the person. But if that accent and the meaning of words diverges so much that things are completely different, you now in essence have two languages. So I don't know if West Coast Swing should undergo a name change, but I recommend that you look up those two resources and do a little homework. I think Forrest is a great guy because not only does he's very passionate about the history, so he's not giving his opinion, but he's actually researching and looking up doing actual academic research to substantiate his claims. So he's been a great resource for me, and his thoughts on how different dances have moved along over time gives him a little bit of perspective that I didn't have because I haven't looked back into the history of dancing at all by comparison to Forrest. But that hopefully will give you a little bit of perspective of where West Coast Swing is today, and through Forrest's perspective and a little bit of history research, we can kind of predict where it might go in the future. So hopefully you guys found that interesting. Look up those resources, hit us up on West Coast Swing Online, hit the subscribe button, and stay tuned to our YouTube channel and our website for lots more cool West Coast Swing related.